Omniscience and omnipresence go naturally together. Did you ever think when you were growing up your mother was omnipotent? You knew she was omniscient because couldn't nothing get by. She knew that. And omnipresence, Lord have mercy, she's around all the time. But nonetheless, you can't have all knowledge and not have all power. If you define knowledge as power, then there's no way you can have all power and not have all knowledge. And of course, you have to be present to execute and to bring to pass those things that you know. I don't want to get bogged down too deeply with the theology here, but it's interesting to understand that God knows what he decrees. I'm having an epiphany right now. When I went through that, I meditated on this thing, and I didn't see it like that. And that is there any knowledge that God has that he didn't decree? Is there any knowledge that God has that he is not the source or the abyss out of which it emerged? Because for it to be any other way, Seth, we think about this, for it to be any other way, then there would have been a source of knowledge that was separate from him that he had to get. And you're with me, I'm up here by myself. Every now and then I can get carried away here. I didn't mean to go this way, but everything has to emerge out of the abyss. I think it is Paul Tillich who talks about emerging out of the abyss. He's the source then of all things. And if the source of all things, then whatever knowledge he has to be the source by which the knowledge was created. In the same way, the function, the substance, the source, and the spirit go together. Because substance now is essence. And there is a difference between essence and expression. The essence is that which makes something what it is, intrinsic and fundamental nature of something. Interesting concept here. Because the essence now is what brings the expression or shows the form. In other words, there can be no expression of motherhood if there is no essence. Which means that a mother doesn't have to have a child to be a mother. And now it begs the question, can you make a mother out of someone who doesn't have the essence, even if they have the child? Because essence is the very intrinsic fundamental nature out of which comes expression. If there is no essence, there can be no expression that is true to that essence if the essential nature is not there. Some people are intrinsically fitted for certain things, and some people ought to leave them alone. Because if the nature isn't there, they put it in other words, in the kenosis passage in the book of Philippians, where it said Jesus did not think it robbery to be equal with God, but put on a form of a servant. The form of a servant here is the essential intrinsic nature that expressed itself in his service towards you and me. And it's a critical thing here because He could not put on the form of a servant if he didn't have the essential intrinsic nature of a servant. The problem with the world today is we've had too many people in charge who didn't have the essence. And consequently, instead of embellishing and enhancing the creation of God, we have turned it upside down, and if the Lord doesn't put his hand on it, we will soon wreck this lovely creation that God has put in place. I feel it here. When you talk about source, source is always Genesis, and Genesis being origin. And so the Spirit then is the motive or the genius, the strong influence, and sacrifice is the source of divine redemption. There's no way that you can have sacrifice and not have redemption, because now love is the spirit of divine redemption. So sacrifice and love must complement each other. Only sacrificial nature is capable of real love. If you don't have the capacity to sacrifice, can I just take my time here before I get happy? Well, the problem is that each one of us go through a narcissistic time in our life. Each one of us go through a very selfish part in our lives, and it's normal. It's normal. It begins when a baby understands that certain things belong to them exclusively. When they find out they're not connected to mom, that they're separate individuals. It goes like this: mine. The baby never says mine until the baby comes to the awareness that I am separate from this being. It's not that the baby wants the being to go away. Certainly not that. But the baby understands you're there, I'm here, and this is not yours. This is mine. Now, all of us go through that stage. In fact, it is the normal psychological development of a human being. But now some of us have not yet gone through the stage because we still think only of ourselves. The problem is when babies are having babies, they have not yet gotten to the stage where they have gone through narcissism into sacrifice. So consequently, they see the baby as a competition for their time, for their pleasure, and for what they want to do. And the baby then becomes an unwanted child because the parent has not gotten to the place to understand sacrifice, because only sacrificial nature is capable of real love. Oh, I want to talk to you about this here. Woo, you're going to give up something if you love. I told you a few weeks ago, you're going to grow or you're going to go. Life then is the true motive of sacrifice, because love becomes the very substratum by which sacrifice operates, which means love moves and loves live in the making of sacrifice. That's what love is about. It's about sacrificing in order to move. It can't move if it doesn't hover over something that needs the power. And the power of love is nothing to play with, because nothing transforms like love. Hate will destroy you and destroy its object, but love will transform the object real tenderly and gently. Oh God, anytime you think about love, God has wrapped love up in mothers. And if a mother isn't with a child in a proper relationship in the early formation, that child is going to be problematic for the rest of his or her life. Oh, I'm beginning to learn some things now. And that is, if you want to be in my space, I want to know how you get along with your mother. What kind of relationship did you all have? Because if that wasn't tight, there's a whole lot of stuff that's going to need to be fixed. And I might not have the capacity of love to be able to fix what a mother botched. I wish you'd understand me. If mother botched it, how you going to fix it? If mother didn't raise her right, how you going to raise her up? You can't go back and redo. You're going to have to call on God and all the armies of the angels. Because if the essence isn't there, the expression cannot be real. Oh, I wish somebody'd understand me. And so one writer said sacrifice is the first element of religion and resolves itself in theological language into the love of God, unquote. So love then is a natural activity of a sacrificial nature, and love is sacrificial nature expressing itself in the appropriate spirit. Oh God, I feel it here. Now that takes me a little next level. Love is not just an expression, but love is a spirit, because God said, the Bible says that God is love, which means anytime you love somebody, you are loving them out of the power of God. And the sacrifice, oh God, is many times and oftentimes you become the sacrifice for the love you want to express, because the Spirit is moving you to sacrifice in order to express love. If you don't know how to sacrifice, don't you come up here talking about I love you. I feel it here, because love drives you into sacrificial arenas and forces you into places that you wouldn't normally go, except the love that moves within your bosom. Can I take it another way? Somebody told me this, I think, no, I don't know, it just came from somewhere, and that is that victory can only be achieved by sacrifice. You can't be anything in this life if you're not willing to give up piece of who you are, and you can't serve others with an open heart if you're not willing to give up a piece of who you are. Everybody watching out for themselves cannot be effective in a world like this. We got to have a few people who don't care nothing about themselves but care about other people to the point where they'll do anything in their power to bring them out. I feel like preaching in here today. If love then is always going forth and it's always expressing itself. I wish I had send me a sister nurse, come over here. Come over here, honey. I need an example. You see, you've got to understand me. Now come on over here and stand right in front of her like this. You see, the whole issue of the human quality is that once you understand that love is a spirit and God is love, then he simply becomes a corporeality of flesh that is used as an instrument to express the love of God to her. So it's not him loving her alone, it's God loving her through him. I wish you'd understand me. Whenever you bring forth a child, you have now stepped, thank you, into the arena of sacrifice. I don't care, man or woman, if you bring forth a child, you have stepped into the arena of sacrifice. The reason mother has to be there early is because mother was there early in a body bond with the child. Daddy, you can come when the child's 3 years old, long as you get there before the child recognizes and understands that there ought to be not only this woman, there ought to be a man here somewhere. You got to hurry up and get there before, the Lord, he made Eve real quick because he figured Adam would understand after